Welcome to r/RedditRevenge. This is a story of someone getting back at someone with revenge after being wronged. And today we have 3 great stories. So subscribe, hit the like button, and let's begin. The first story. Former police officer who'd caused me significant distress during his tenure, blatantly violating traffic regulations. I took immediate action and imposed the appropriate fine. The second story. Truck driver's legally rented parking spot is stolen, leading to a chain of events that result in the offender losing their job and facing legal consequences. The third story. In an attempt to sabotage my relationship with my new girlfriend, my jealous ex-partner resorted to spreading malicious rumors. As a result, his actions backfired. The first story is, you make my life miserable when we're serving in police together. Be properly fined when you break the rules. This story backs to the beginning of the 90s when I, 25 male at that time, had to serve the mandatory period of 1 year in the army in my country. That was the thing that everybody disliked, because basically you wasted your time being barely paid some $4 a day, without having in return other than some useless basic military training and guard duties and so on. So I decided to join a branch of the army which has powers of civilian police, MP and military force all together, on the aim to at least do something good for the community, and get a decent monthly payment in return. To explain, this means you would be simultaneously a police officer, a military police officer, and a soldier. Not so easy to be chosen, but I was more than qualified and I got it. Take into account that we served in a professional police force, as a sort of auxiliary reserve force that was employed on police and public order duties, always together with some professional police officer. Despite our rank was auxiliary police, we had the same power and gears of any other professional police officer, and we had full power to operate alone if it was the case. Now, the mandatory military service had 2 choices you could pick. Choose to be a basic private, or choose to be a complement lieutenant, if you had the right requisites. I chose the first because being a lieutenant would mean serving during 18 months instead of 12. At the time, I said no thanks. Let's get rid of it and back home. Well, many of you know how miserable your life in the military can be, if you're low rank, and so unlucky to get the wrong commander. And of course, my platoon was assigned to the most evil, idiotic, dumb 20-ish-year-old lieutenant you could imagine. Take into account that we were, for the most part, people who had a good instruction, and smart enough to join a kind of elite force like the one we were in. Also because you could postpone the mandatory military duty until you got the university degree. That means that there were a lot of people with a degree among us. There were lawyers, MDs, architects, and so on. Of course, many of us were well beyond 25 years old, so at least a lot more adult and responsible than an entitled child like him. As in DL, dumb A lieutenant opinion, all of us were just some horse SH because we were not at his rank level, and he treated us consequently. Want to go out of the base to see your family when off duty? Nope, permission denied, because you have your shoes soled dirty. He would ask to check your personal gun, and immediately ground you for 15 days, because your gun is not to be given to others no matter what. Next time, accordingly, you don't give him the gun. Well then, you're grounded because you disobeyed an order. Finish your duty in time with good results? Not for him. Go on night shift because you're lazy and stupid. You get the picture. He invented new and smart ways to just make our life a hell, with no reason except his sadistic satisfaction. Well, as time goes by, he finishes his duty and gets back to civilian life, where he's just an entitled jerk with no power of no sort. And as time goes by, we finish our duty too. Except 6 of us who decided to join the force and stay on duty indefinitely. I was one of them, so I stayed in the army and was transferred a couple of months after to our country's capital, and just went on with my life doing my job until a glorious day, when I was on traffic patrol duty. A black car speeded on a red light in a heavy trafficked urban boulevard with lots of pedestrians, just in front of my eyes. And who was in charge to decide whether it was the case of stopping people or not? You bet it was yours truly. And who was the driver? You bet it was DL. To be clear, I didn't know it was DL. I would have stopped the car anyway because the situation was very dangerous for pedestrians and other drivers. But when I approached the driver's side to ask for the papers, I recognized him immediately. But he did not recognize me. You know how it works with this kind of entitled jerks. They simply don't care to remember the faces of their slaves. In my head, I said, dude, you're gonna remember me for a long time after I'm done with you. On a normal voice. Good morning, sir. Driver's license and car papers, please. Here you are, officer. Tucked inside the driver's license, there was a badge of the Veteran Army Police Association. Without a blink, I gave it back to him, saying, "This has nothing to do with driving, sir. Please hold it somewhere else." He was smirking in a kind of attempt to enhance some bro code and saying, "I'm a retired colleague." And I responded in a full smile. "Yes, I perfectly know who you are. You're not retired. You just finished your military service. You served in name of the town and I was serving under you. Don't you recognize me?" If I had hit the guy with a loaded truck, it couldn't have hurt him so badly. When he realized the kind of nightmare he was entering, having in front of him a police officer whose life was ruined by him, and having broken traffic rules. His face turned from smile to despair in less than a second. He knew he was in deep SH, and that he would be fined for red light and speeding. But what he didn't know was how deep the SH was. Because you see, he didn't know that despite what he said to my face multiple times, that I was just a perfect nobody with no rank, I was effing good at my job. So what I did was just doing my job properly, nothing more. And I went to check thoroughly every single issue he could have had in the car. Speeding? Check. $100 fine. Red light? Check. Another $88 fine. No use of safety belt? Check. $95 fine. Dangerous driving in town street? Check. $155 fine. Tires not properly maintained? Check. $45. And so on and on and on and on, until he was begging me to stop. But you know, when he said, "I guess I've learned my lesson now," I told him that there was nothing personal. After all, I'm just a perfect nobody with no rank, so I have just to abide and apply the law, and went on and on and on. When I finished, a long time after, believe me, he was finished also. So I told him I should just confiscate your car and tow it, with some kind of $2,500 more fine. But I am not an effing a-hole who takes advantage by his power. Let me just give you the best regards from my fellow platoon mates and show off. That night, I don't know why, I slept very, very well with a smile on my face. The second story is, try to steal my legally rented parking spot, enjoy being unemployed. I'm a professional driver. As such, on the roads in the US, there are different truck stops throughout the country that has a pay-to-park system. Usually about 10 to 20% of the lot marked off as reserved, with each space running from $15 to $25. The truck stop where this took place had parking for $17, which is relatively cheap for a guaranteed spot. The spots are reserved for 24 hours, starting at 4 p.m. local time, and extending to 3 p.m. the following afternoon. I knew that I would have a late night delivery, so I came to the truck stop around 3:30 and paid for a reserve spot. I told the manager on duty that I had a delivery up the road that night and would be back. Once delivery was completed, but should still be able to clear out the spot by the next afternoon today. She told me that this was okay, and she would mark the spot as sold when I left. That way, if someone else comes in trying to reserve that spot, she could consult her notes and deny the sale. 11:15 p.m. rolls around. I take off for my delivery. I don't get out of that facility until 2:30 a.m. the next morning, this morning. So I groggily drive back to the truck stop to reclaim my paid-for spot, only to find that the reserved parking spaces are all full. I call the manager on duty, and after giving me her info, inform her that all the spots are full, and that someone is parked in a spot and hasn't paid for it. She sends her other employee out to start checking trucks. The culprit was from a company that's known for their bright orange trailers, and he was a company driver. The other employee starts banging on his door to inform him that he's parked illegally, and he has to move. Meanwhile, I can see the commotion from my mirror, with my vantage point in the fuel island, where I had been instructed to temporarily park. The driver answers the door with a bottle of Heineken in one hand, and some sort of smoking implement in another. I know what it is, but for the sake of the mods, I'm not going to say it. I decided to roll down the window to hear the commotion, and I hear the employee tell the driver to either move, or he will get the towing company and police involved. This driver is flat out irate that someone had the audacity to tell him where he can and cannot park, so he slams the door on the employee, threatening him. Employee calls the police and tow company, and the police show up first. I had worked for this company before, so I know their policy, and more importantly what they can and cannot have in their trucks. Alcoholic beverages are not allowed in the cab. Anything that isn't a cigarette or a cigar and a lighter, also not allowed. The coup de grace, a pew-pew of any kind, absolutely not allowed, and especially not allowed loaded. The driver had all of that and some other not-so-legal substances in his cab. So he was hauled away in cuffs. His truck was hauled away on a wrecker. I made a call after the commotion died down to the company's safety director, and informed them that their rig will be in an impound lot, and their driver is going to jail over the not-so-legal stuff he had in his truck. She thanked me and said that he will definitely lose his job, especially over the alcohol and the other not-so-legal stuff. I guess he played the screw around and find out card, and it bit him in his career. Edit. It is definitely illegal to have alcohol in the cab of a semi, at least according to a few DOT officers I've spoken to about the issue. I know that many carriers have it stated in their company policy as well, but that's just company policy. But the loaded weapon were the main concerns about it all, as those are definitely not allowed in the cab of a truck. The fact that he threatened the truck stop employee with said weapon while displaying the other stuff led to this driver's demise. The third story is: got revenge on the jealous ex of my girlfriend after he tried to ruin us. 10-ish years ago when I, 25 male, was still in high school, I was part of a youth development organization. In some of our weekend camps in conjunction with other units, I had developed one hell of a crush on a girl a year younger than me from the neighboring unit. Call her crush. Of course, I wasn't the only one, and while I made my move and made good progress with her over the following months, I wasn't the lucky one in the end. My competition, call him Jake, was from Crush's unit, so he had the advantage of having more regular in-person contact with her. They were together a couple of weeks until Crush decided that Jake wasn't the right fit for her and split with him. As much as I was sympathetic to her for the breakup, I took this as the perfect opportunity to make my move. Think of me what you will for that. I was young and dumb and took my chance. It worked, and less than 2 weeks later we were together and not being shameful about it. Cue Jake setting in motion actions to trigger my revenge. The youth organization held yearly camps where other teens from units all over the country would get to meet in a central location for a whole week, conducting activities to build skills, teamwork, and inter-unit relations. One of these camps happened a week after Crush and I got together, and of course we signed up for all the same classes together. So did Jake, and this exposed him to how much better as a couple Crush and I were compared to Crush and Jake. Apparently he didn't like that one bit, and on the final night of the week-long camp, which was a party night, he went spreading rumors about how I'd been talking SH behind Crush's back, that I was calling her ugly, had said I was being with her out of pity, had forwarded intimate photos of her, of which she never sent me in the first place. Hold that though for later. Generally really hateful rumor mongering. Crush of course heard these rumors herself and came to me crying, called me all sorts of names and left with her friends all giving me dirty looks. Being a young dumb teen at the time, I had no idea what was going on, and didn't suspect foul play as at the time Jake and I were good mates. A day later on the ride back home, I tried to message her to discuss the previous night. Accusations flew. We had a big fight, and I ended the conversation angrily saying I was fine with never seeing her again. Told her to enjoy her life without me. Think of me what you will for that. Cue Crush and I finding out we had been played. Later that day, the guilt for being an a-hole to her set in, and I messaged her again apologizing for my words and not being supportive enough when she came to me crying, explaining that I had no idea what was going on or what I had done to trigger her being upset with me. She then finally comes out and tells me that she had heard from multiple people the rumors against me. Now I finally had an idea of what had happened the previous night. I told her how much she meant to me and that I would never do anything to compromise our relationship. We then started contacting the rumor spreaders together, putting together the pieces, and all accounts led back to one person, Jake. The revenge came during the fact-finding. As Crush and I were going back through everyone who had spread the rumors, we were showing them our case against him and tearing down every friendship that Jake had throughout the organization. Some people, of course, stayed on his side. We simply blocked them. But most people saw Jake for the person he truly was, a jealous a-hole who would see others in ruin for his own gain. He lost almost all his friends in the organization, and everyone shunned him. He ended up leaving the organization not long after. Thank you for watching. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel.